So how do you want to start?
NAMOR is pretty fucking sick.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's a NAMOR. We're talking about Wakanda Forever.
Welcome back to MediaJam.
We're doing an intro this time.
Cue the flashy music. MTV style intro. I was flying through the wall, guns pointed at everybody.
That was such a weird movie.
I'm honestly very mixed about it, but now that I kind of sit down, I just want to watch it again.
I do too, partly because I couldn't fucking see anything.
Yeah, I know, people kept standing up.
That's a bit rough as an opening statement, but when you have it's different in a theater versus being at home, because dark scenes in a theater are actually dark where you can't see anything, and that was an issue I had throughout pretty much the entire thing. At the beginning with the river, him walking out of the river, I could barely see what was happening, and also all of the scenes in I can't remember the name of the city.
Oh,
Taco Land?
Zach, that's racist.
Taloxan?
Talocan?
Talocan?
Talocan, yeah.
Talocan. Taco Land.
Taco Land? Taco Town.
All of the scenes is so dark you can barely tell what's going on, which is a common issue for theaters showing films.
I think that was more just an issue of where we went to. The theater is very dark. And it's also just the fact that we're watching movies in theaters and then coming back home and talking about it. So, like...
Yeah, we really only get to one impression, and then we just give it to you bare.
Yeah, this is straight up first impressions.
Yeah.
And it's honestly the best part. I do agree it was very dark. I'm very excited to watch this when it comes out and watch it on the TV, because they did a very beautiful job with the underworld, the underwater world.
Taco Land. I'm gonna stop calling it that.
You're gonna have to bleep all this out.
It's not racist.
It was a very beautiful world, very well constructed. I wish we would have got more. I think they also showed us life within it, but because the theater was too fucking dark, we couldn't actually see it.
When you have people who are not to say underdeveloped in technology, but clearly they're behind by a bit. Their still main use is melee weapons, spears and whatnot. They have access to vibranium, but they're not at the technological level that the Wakandans are, because they only had it for maybe 500 years at this point. Whereas the Wakandans have had it for maybe, I can't remember how long, 1,000, 2,000?
I also think it's because they're underwater and they really can't harness electricity. So, that would also be a big component of powering stuff.
They can make grenades out of water, though.
Yeah, but that's just
odd.
That's just propulsion. So I'm pretty sure that just has to do with some combustion with rocks and whatnot. So you just heat up...
Or just super compressed water.
Yeah.
It would make sense.
You work with what you have. It'd be no different than how we would control birds and whatnot for flying. They use orcas.
By the FBI.
Yeah, the bourgeoisie.
I can't help but draw connections between the Talokans and the people from Avatar.
Pandorians.
Yeah, Pandorians.
Especially with the new one.
Yeah, it's so weird to have these two things come out at the same time, where these two different people just have a very similar design. It's mostly because they're blue and in traditional garbs.
They remind me of the Zoras from Legend of Zelda 2.
The fish people?
Yeah, they are fish people. Similar to it as well. I like how they set up Namor, but we've also been doing the Justice League stuff. So I was like, oh man, these guys look like Atlanteans, minus the fucking...
Well, that's the thing. People were wondering why Namor wasn't the ruler of Atlantis in this when he normally is in the comics and stuff. Which I didn't even know. I know basically nothing about Namor. He's not really a common character you see in a lot of their productions.
Well, yeah, I think this is his first actual big screen appearance.
Yeah. When you think water hero, you think Aquaman.
Well, Namor's not a hero so much as he is just an
He's just a guy.
He's just a guy protecting his people. Much like Black Adam, which you can actually watch our video on from last week or so.
Jesus Christ, really? Just gonna plug that here? Sure. Go back, we've posted one other video on this channel so far.
I just felt like it was a good segue.
It was not.
It was terrible.
But this episode brought to you by us, because nobody will give us money.
Yeah, the Namor was a really good setup, really good character, and how they did his introduction and changing him from the comics was really interesting.
He carried the movie.
He fucking carried
just in his design and his actions. He's really well designed.
He was phenomenally well designed, and I love
they gave him wings, genetically. He grew those out of his feet.
Yeah.
That's so mind-boggling, because go back 20, maybe even 10 years ago, they would never have done that. It would have been some kind of boot or something he wore that let him fly.
What if we did what they did in the comics? Because
the things in the comics work for a reason, and I never understood why in like the 90s and early 2000s superhero movies were like, we can't do that thing from the comics because that would never work. It has always worked. You take something directly from the comics, stick it in a movie, 90% of the time it'll work. Like they've recently been doing a lot of comic accurate suits, and they look phenomenal. Like they kind of did that. The 10% where it goes wrong, for example, is the Daredevil movie. Like just the full leather outfit, it made his head way too round.
I have the same opinion about Michael Keaton's Batman. I love the movies, but the costume, the fact that he has to turn his body, doesn't look menacing. It looks goofy as fuck.
That, and it's like a weird, the rubber of the suit looks like it's got fingerprints all over it, and it just it looks like
a gimp suit.
It looks like powdered rubber that somebody's just been touching. Somebody's fingering Batman, and I want to know who. One problem I do have with Namor is that he has the same weakness as SpongeBob, where if you dry him out, he's basically useless. like when he goes to visit Sandy's tree dome, he's like, I don't need it. Yeah, I don't need.
Yeah, he literally like, I need water, and I'm like, it's fucking SpongeBob.
Like, really, that's your weakness, is that you get dried out, dehydrated.
Yeah, well, look at me, pal. I can last like fucking 2 weeks without water. You're fucking nothing compared to me. I'm better than Namor.
And on top of the whole it being too dark to see anything, which again might be a problem with the theater, the tone of scenes would change in the middle of it. There's at one point when they're fighting on the bridge. You brought this up before. And it seems like a really serious moment filled with action, and they're facing off against the Talocans. And one of the cops turns to the other and is like, are they blue? Which just feels so out of place in the middle of a conflict.
Yeah, like they're firing guns at these people that are already there ready to fucking go. And then they're just like, they turn and they question what they're seeing. Like, they're blue? And then like later on we're with Ironheart, who we'll get to later.
I have words to say about Ironheart.
I do too. She shows up and then one of the cops is like, shit, she's got an Iron Man suit. And then it's just like, what the fuck? It's just so out of place. It reminds me of the scene in Iron Man 3 when he's like, honestly, I hate working for these guys.
But it's more direct. Like, I don't want to dunk on the writing, but it just felt off in a lot of places. More so towards the beginning. And I don't know if that's because they started writing with a serious tone movie with the acceptance of the terrible loss that this nation has felt. And then the CEOs were like, that's not Marvel enough. You need more quips. You need more funny ha-ha one-liners. It's just, it feels really out of place at sometimes. More poorly timed, maybe.
I feel like, honestly, yeah, you're right. In the sense that you're starting the movie off, and then it's like 10-15 minutes of it was very serious. And I do like that they took the moment of silence on the Marvel Studios logo for Chadwick Boseman. I felt that was really appropriate. And honestly, almost brought a tear to my eye, but I sucked that tear back up because I'm a man. But I let it back out because it was Chadwick Boseman. And it was very serious. And then, yeah, it just starts being quips. Even Okoye, we'll just put a big asterisk on screen if we call her.
Put a big ass on screen.
Just a photo of me. I really liked Ironheart's costume, and the first Ironheart suit was pretty sick. I like that it was just a bunch of cars.
The first one was pretty cool. It feels weird because this is the first introduction of this child, who's technically not even a child. She's 19, but
she's like a MacGuffin in the film too.
She builds a vibranium detector for school, which I find odd considering vibranium is like this very, very limited resource outside of Wakanda. I feel like in order to build something that can detect it, you'd have to have hands-on experience working with vibranium. And I don't know how she'd do that. Unless she's making millions off of doing other kids' homework. I
feel like the premise of that is to just showcase that she's brilliant. And I mean, fair enough. But it would have been cool to actually see, like, yeah, I went somewhere and they let me work on a spear, or maybe she was like on a mission.
I went to that museum that Killmonger did moments before he shot that man, and I took a look at that mining weapon, and I was like,
I could do something with this.
I could probably.
I can make an Iron Man suit out of it.
What am I, 15 at this point? I could do something with that.
I'm just gonna wait a couple years till
this girl stood on the shoulders of giants and basically just copyright infringement Iron Man's whole thing. When you cut out a crudely drawn heart from a piece of metal with a hammer as homage to the first Iron Man.
Well, she was also wearing the wife beater too.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't realize that either. It's just, it feels out of place.
I don't think it did, honestly.
Like, if we had some kind of hint towards her in earlier productions, then maybe. But just this child who we've never heard of before, who apparently can work with vibranium having never seen it in her life, who can build entire Iron Man suits within a couple days that are highly advanced. You'd think we would have heard of this child before.
Especially because she does drop the line that there's a YouTube channel dedicated to sightings of me.
It's just odd. If Iron Man would go to Spider-Man for being caught online, you'd think he'd go to her too. What's her suit powered by anyways? Because all the Iron Man suits are powered by arc reactors. Does she make her own arc reactor? Is it run on diesel?
She's solar powered.
Solar powered.
She runs on garbage.
She's like Back to the Future too.
Yeah, you put an empty banana in me and I power for days.
I like that the Talokans are buff without abs.
Yeah.
Like the big guy that fights Okoye a bunch is just like...
He's just ripped.
Barrel-chested. Like, he looks like he would beat the crap out of somebody without being chiseled. And I think that kind of representation is really good. Because you usually see chiseled people and it's like, that's muscle, but you don't necessarily need to look like that to be strong. That was a big point of contention with Moana's Maui. Is that he didn't have abs. Like, oh, you made him fat. No, that's all still muscle. It's just not for looks. It's for
practicality.
Yeah, it's for usability.
It would have been cool to see him fight M'Baku and then go against as like that male on male, and then
the two tanks just take on each other.
Yeah, just that would have been fucking sick.
On the topic of leadership and M'Baku, I like at the end that he's just like, Shuri's not here. I challenge her because I know she's not going to show up. And that immediately puts me in charge of everyone. But I feel like he could do a good job as a ruler. Obviously, he has earned the respect of his own tribe and the respect of Shuri and T'Challa. So him being the leader of Wakanda, I feel like is a good move.
I feel like it should have been either him or Okoye. But Okoye isn't a political leader. She's more just a warrior.
Or the... spoiler alert, mother of T'Challa's son, the woman whose name I don't remember.
Nakia?
Was it Nakia? Yeah.
Nakia, something like that? Yeah.
Nokia cell phone. I feel like she could have been a good queen, but she's kind of detached herself in order to raise her son, which was surprising. How old is that boy?
That boy is 6 years old.
Is he?
He is.
Officially?
Yes.
Okay, then that makes more sense, because I thought he was older than that, maybe around 10.
No, I think he's 6 years old. It happened before the snap.
That would make most sense, because he's way too awkward around her. When he first meets her to have already had his child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think what they're doing is they're actually going to age jump it. He's going to be the next Black Panther after Shuri.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Next Avengers, but in that, Black Panther has a child with Storm from the X-Men, and he's got really friggin' cool electric powers. And I'm kind of upset that it's difficult to try and skirt around Chadwick Boseman's passing, but I'm kind of disappointed that we never got to see that dynamic between T'Challa and Storm from the X-Men.
I wanna stop you right there because I think that's what they're going for. The rumors that I've heard and the stuff online is saying that they might focus on T'Challa's son becoming Black Panther, and then if X-Men come in with the next generation anyway, we could still have that. It just may not be T'Challa.
It'll be his replacement.
It'll be his son.
And I could live with that too.
I guess. It feels so odd not having Chadwick Boseman play Black Panther anymore.
No, it definitely did feel odd.
Like, as an actor and as a man, he will be missed.
He's an absolute legend in everything he did.
I think I prefer this quote-unquote Atlantis over DC's Atlantis.
I like that it's not Atlantis. I love the fact it's Aztecian. like mine and whatnot. That
Yeah.
shit is so fucking cool.
And like they've been underwater alone for the past 500 years, and they really haven't developed any more than they had when they first entered the water. I really like that aspect of this highly advanced country who's like leading on the bleeding edge of development is just taken down by these people who haven't technologically developed in the past 500 years. Like it's just people with spears,
You know what I love?
and they just destroy them.
You know what I love about them is it's the dynamic of survivalist instincts and minimalism and relying on technology. While the Wakandans still have their survivalist instincts, they also rely on the modern technology.
They're too heavily reliant on their technology.
Exactly. Whereas the other guys don't have enough technology to actually have forward capability with their lives. So they rely on their survivalist instincts, which then take over. And so they've benefited that front, especially with their ability to like sonic, we'll call it the mesmerizer thing that makes people jump in the water.
Sirens.
Yeah.
Which I was really surprised by and
That-
impressed by.
That caught me off guard.
Yeah, it's just like immediately like this is legit sirens, and they've probably been doing this once in a while to avoid people encountering them for the past 500 years, which would go ahead and explain myths and legends about actual sirens.
Yeah.
How did they develop that? Because I don't think that's a technology. I think that's just them
I think that's
vocalizing.
Yeah, I think that has to do something with being underwater and like sonar and whatnot.
Or maybe this is going to lead kind of into their heart-shaped herb, where it's an aquatic plant.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that changes them genetically to be aquatic, which is why, because you have mammals that are aquatic that use sonar and stuff, and I feel like that's an extension of that, their ability to vocalize, to hypnotize.
Well, that they also control orcas and whales, and they
Is
ride
that
on
control or is that training?
those. I think
Because I'm led to believe that it's training, because they're not just holding on to like their bare skin. They have like saddles and stuff, not actual saddles, but like they're covered in ropes for them to hold on to. They're not swimming with them, they're being dragged along.
But at the same time, though, you could also control them with sonar and whatnot. I think they are trained, but sonar is a part of that.
Just some form of
Communication
primitive
with-
communication with them.
Yeah. So how Aquaman could talk to animals and water aquatic animals, probably the same thing, but they can all do it.
I think Aquaman is more of like a telepathic communication. Theirs is just like kind of pointing them in the right direction,
Okay, fair enough. Then it's like having a dog. Like, okay, sit.
or using a whistle. I like that though. Like killer whales, just like I don't think that's the right environment for a killer whale in Africa. That wing being torn off still haunts me.
Man, that honestly, you nailed it best. We were discussing it on the walk home, and it was, I felt like I said it probably feels like getting hair pulled.
It's probably more like getting your finger pulled off. Because if you've ever seen how a chicken wing looks without its feathers, you know that's literally like its arm with multiple bones and joints. So that's taking it off at the joint with all the meat and connective tissue. Had that been me, I would have been like, I'm done. I'm out. You win. I'm gonna need at least a day for this. I can't walk this off.
I'm gonna need to file workers' comp. I'm gonna need a bag of ice, bag of peas, and a fucking cold bath.
I'm calling a foul. Not because it's a wing, pun not intended.
Don't laugh at me. This fucking hurts. Time out.
I am in unbelievable pain.
This is not
And
fun.
you've lit me on fire. Thank you.
Have a good Friday.
Could I bother you for a glass of water?
I feel like we'd have to go way more in depth with actually how they mutate, and they don't give us a lot for how they mutate aside from the fact that they have gills.
I wouldn't even necessarily say they mutate. It's more of like the Black Panther transformation. They're not born that way, but Namor was,
Yes.
making him an official mutant.
Yeah, Namor is technically the first official mutant on screen, and it's confirmed because he says he's a mutant.
Patrick Stewart came in on a scooter. He was like, I want you to join my high school.
He came in and he did a sick grind like that one John Kari video.
I have questions about how they choose a Black Panther. T'Challa dies, and there's no heart-shaped herb, so they're like, there's no more Black Panther. But then she makes an artificial herb, and she becomes Black Panther, which is fine. And it's also probably going to give her like a different power set, I assume, because it's based off of the Talokan's plant. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, if that'll make her stronger or just different. Didn't make her blue. I feel like that's a bullet dodged. But like,
Definitely.
if in order to become Black Panther, in order to find a new Black Panther, does the old one have to die, or can they retire? Because I assumed that T'Challa was Black Panther before his father died, but his father was also a Black Panther.
I feel like it's up to you. You can retire. Somebody else just takes the mantle when they become of age.
So is it by blood?
I think so.
Specifically, that family descended from the first Black Panther? It really seemed like anybody who became king of Wakanda or queen in the first one would have become the Black Panther.
I think what it is the Black Panther's the mightiest warrior, and T'Challa happened to have both. So in the first one, with Killmonger, his brother, Killmonger's dad is T'Chaka's brother. He gets killed, so they have the same dad. Killmonger could technically take the throne because he's a bloodline from them. I feel like it may have something to do with that, and they're gonna go with that with T'Challa's kid. But it could also
like, the royalty is by blood unless you're defeated in ritual combat.
Yeah, I think that's all.
And you can't have the Black Panther powers. But immediately after becoming king, Killmonger becomes the Black Panther.
I think because he forced himself to.
I guess he could change the rules.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, if anybody else had become ruler, does that make them qualify immediately? Then their bloodline takes over and only their bloodline can become Black Panther. How does it work? What are the politics like in Wakanda?
Next week, we're going to discuss the politics in Wakanda.
I'd rather die than discuss politics, so we're moving on from this. All right,
Don't take
you've
that
been
out of
watching
context.
MediaJam. Join us next time. We're probably going to watch another movie that we're going to talk about. You probably get the pattern at this point.
Whatever we decide to watch, whatever we decide to make, whatever we decide to create, you can find it here at MediaJam.
Like the thing and subscribe, or don't. Dislike it if it's bad. Who cares? Goodbye.